Welcome to Viral Recaps. Today I'm going to explain a thriller and crime movie called Phone Booth from 2002. Spoilers incoming. Let's get right into it. The movie opens with Stu, a publicist, walking through the streets of New York with his assistant, Adam. Stu is making some business calls as he's trying to arrange his client for a magazine cover. We can notice right away that he's not a very successful publicist and he uses lots of lies and manipulation to achieve his goals. In fact, he's not even paying his assistant. He's brainwashing Adam by saying that spending time around him would make him one day very successful and rich. Once they're done making calls, they part ways as Stu says he's late for a business meeting. In reality though, he just enters a phone booth to call his mistress, Pamela. As soon as he gets inside, something very weird happens. A delivery guy tries to deliver him a pizza to the phone booth. But of course, being the ignorant bad boy he is, Stu just tells him to fuck off. His mistress is completely unaware that he's married. He uses the very same phone booth to call her every day. Once they're done talking, he feels guilty for a moment while looking at his wedding ring. Just then, the phone rings back and a man with a deep-sounding voice has a conversation with Stu. The caller says he knows everything about him, including the affair with his mistress and who his wife is. He then calls Pamela and forces Stu to helplessly listen as he tells her that Stu has a wife and was lying to her all that time. The caller then demands from Stu to call his wife and confess the truth. Scared by the whole situation, he complies and calls his wife. Just before he makes his confession, Kelly mentions that a man called her earlier and told her that Stu will call her from a phone booth to tell her something important. In the meantime, two hookers are banging on the phone booth and they threaten him to get out as they need to use it as well, but Stu manages to make them go away. Then, being too scared to confess, he has a sudden change of mind and tells the caller to piss off. Stu tells his wife that the call she received earlier was just a prank and hangs up on her, saying he's late for a meeting. The caller says that to keep lying was a very bad decision. He tells Stu that if he hangs up the phone, he will kill him right there and then with a sniper. To prove he's not bluffing, the caller tells him to look beneath his right shoulder and Stu finally realizes the seriousness of the situation. The hookers then come back with their pimp. Stu tries to negotiate with him by offering some money to keep using the phone booth. It doesn't work out though and the pimp gets extremely irritated, so he comes back with a bat and breaks into the booth. The caller reminds Stu that if he hangs up the phone, he'll still shoot him. He also offers to take down the pimp. Stu doesn't want anyone to die, but as he has no choice, he's forced to accept the caller's offer and he kills him. This causes a huge chaos and everyone on the street thinks that Stu is the shooter, which makes the caller laugh out of enjoyment. Stu then tries to act smart and dials 911 secretly on his cell phone while speaking with the caller. We learn from their conversation that the caller is a serial killer. All his targets are similar. People who lie and run through everyone to become successful. Unfortunately though, the phone booth is bugged and he knows very well that Stu called 911, so he punishes him by shooting him in the ear. In the meantime, the cops arrive and Captain Remy tries to speak with him. The caller won't let Stu say what's really going on, so he only tells the captain he doesn't have a gun on him and that he's speaking with his psychiatrist. Once Remy gets too close to the booth, the caller says he'll blow his brain out. In order to save him, Stu insults the policeman to make him go away and successfully saves him. The captain is smart enough though and feels that something's not right, so he immediately requests a techie to come down and track the caller. Meanwhile, Stu's cell phone rings and the caller tries to trick him into thinking it's Kelly, who probably just watched the news. Turns out it's not though, and he sees his wife arriving in the crowd. It was the caller instead. He wanted to get him killed by the cops once he reached for his back pocket to pick up the phone. Kelly tries to talk with him and convince him to give himself up, but he yells that she's not his wife in order to protect her from becoming a target. The caller tells him that's pointless though, as he perfectly knows how she looks. He also says that the techies that are trying to track him down are useless as he installed an encryption device on both ends of the line, making him untraceable. The good thing about it though is that the captain now knows there's something fishy going on and now makes finding the caller his main priority. Stu decides to keep silent and not talk with the caller anymore. That only enrages him though, and he says he'll kill Kelly if he remains silent. Stu then says he's ready to do anything he wants to spare her life and let him go. The caller then demands him to tell his wife the truth about his mistress. Stu calls for Kelly, and he finally feels relieved after spitting it out, knowing that it'll all be over now, but of course, things don't end up as expected. The caller says he changed his mind and he still hasn't had enough of this game. This enrages Stu, so he hangs up the phone and comes out of the booth, saying that he's giving himself up. Just then, the phone starts ringing again and Stu sees that the caller is aiming right at Kelly's head, so he goes back inside the booth and answers. Captain Remy is now 100% sure that Stuart's not the shooter. He tells his men to start searching around silently. Meanwhile, Stu is arguing with the caller on the phone. He says he won't be able to shoot him with just one shot and that firing a second shot would give out his position. He also adds that he doesn't have a gun, so the police would quickly realize that he's not the one to blame for the pimp's death. Unfortunately though, the caller thought about all of this and placed a pistol inside the phone booth's ceiling. Stu then comes up with one last desperate attempt to get himself out of this. He acts having a mental breakdown and secretly calls Kelly on his cell phone, hoping that he'll be able to distract him this time and stay unnoticed. The cops hear his conversation with the caller, and Captain Remy now knows the shooter's using a sniper and is located in one of the buildings. He tells his men not to open fire under any circumstances. Meanwhile, the caller is trying to force Stu to take the pistol and suicide in front of everyone, or else he'll shoot Kelly dead. While they're talking, the cops already managed to locate the caller's position, and Captain Remy tells Stu that they've found him. Upon hearing this, Stu tells the caller that it's all over and he is left just a couple of seconds before the cops get him. The caller replies he has just enough time to kill Kelly. To prevent this, Stu finally takes the gun and comes out of the booth, screaming to the caller to kill him instead. A few seconds after, we hear a shot and he falls to the ground. Meanwhile, the policemen are already in the caller's room, but he committed suicide by cutting his throat with a knife. Coming back to Stu, it turns out one of the cops intentionally shot him with a rubber bullet to prevent the shooter from killing him. Once they take down the caller's corpse, Stu gets up to see who he was, and it turns out to be the pizza delivery guy. At this point, everything seems to be over, but that's not the case though. Once the medics put Stu into the ambulance and sedate him with painkillers, the real caller comes by to say his final words. He says that he used the delivery guy to cover himself up. He also gives Stu a warning to stick to his new honest identity, or else he'll be hearing from him again. Hey, if you enjoyed this recap, please consider subscribing and leaving a like, as it helps the channel a lot. Thanks for watching and take care.